And here we go. Hello, Mysterium. My name is Capella, and I'm one of the committee this year, and I am thrilled to be hosting this panel of scientists. Do you guys still go by scientists as a nickname?
Yeah.
Fantastic. And I'd like to give everyone a minute to introduce themselves and what they do, because I'm super excited for the questions and this panel that we've got for you guys. So go on ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'll go first. My name's Hannah Gamiel. For those of you who just watched the panel right before this, you probably already know me, but I'm the development director at Cyan. I run business development and programming and do a bunch of other stuff. I haven't been at Cyan as long as some other folks have, but it's been a really wild ride, about 7 or 8 years at this point. So person next to me I see is Abner. So Abner, why don't you go next?
Yeah, not a problem. So hello, I'm Abner. I'm pretty new at the company. I'm a senior systems programmer for Cyan. And I also have had a crazy ride. So I'm from Puerto Rico originally. Then my crazy obsession with computers granted me the also crazy privilege to work for NASA at Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Really?
Yeah, and from there, I got an interest in video games and like what makes them tick, right? Because we all grew up with video games, I feel like a lot of us, for sure. And then it became very rapidly apparent that it's a challenging industry, just like the space industry, in many similar ways, actually. And I like a good challenge. So I worked for Tekla, the company that made Braid and The Witness for almost 3 years until landing here at Cyan in January of this year. And I know The Witness was directly inspired by Myst, and Myst is such an icon in the hearts of many. So it's kind of surreal to be working here and with the people here who are amazing, and I love it. So that's me. Who's next?
I'll just go.
Karl's next. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Karl. I'm the principal software engineer at Cyan. I've been here like since I got out of high school, and I'm old now, so I've just been here a long time. Worked on like everything since Uru, not always as a programmer. Started in QA and then, worked on programming here and there, and then now principal software engineer. But I do a lot of gameplay. That's kind of my thing. So yeah, that's not much to go on there, unless you have questions. So let's go to Brandon.
I'm Brandon. I'm a software engineer. I've been here about 6 years now. Started in QA on abduction, and then during the abduction, when we were releasing for PlayStation, moved to programming, and then I've been on Myst. And yeah, I don't know how I follow up Abner. Like, he killed it. So yeah.
These folks are crazy smart, by the way. Like crazy smart. No need to put yourself down at all. You're like amazing. You're amazing.
Well, thank you, Abner. And let's go with Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh Van Veldhuizen. I started working at Cyan in 2008 as a tester. I worked for the company on and off until about 2015, where I've been working full-time ever since, and I'm the quality assurance manager. So thank you for having me.
We're thrilled to have you. All right, everybody. Well, we are going to get to some questions and answers as those crop up. But in the meantime, this one is listed as kind of the dev programming event. So obviously, the presentation just before this was about what's going on with Myst PC upcoming. Myst Oculus just happened. So I want to start off with like a friendly question so that you guys, aren't suddenly thrown into the scariest things first, right? So what's one of the coolest things that you can think of that happened with developing like in the last couple of years at Cyan? What's a cool memory? What's something fun you guys did together where you're like, I'm proud of that, or God, I love this team?
Yeah, I think I'll start. We've been able to bring on like really amazing people. Abner, we have another senior engineer, Michael Trepka, and he's from Epic. We just got a new hire right out of school, Andrew. It's been really awesome to get these new people on board, and we have tons of artists, and you'll meet them later on. But it's been awesome to get these people on board, and Abner's really gracious, and he's like, hey, these people are crazy smart, but it's like only one of us worked at NASA. That's really cool. And it's really awesome to just work with them. I feel like we kind of work at a like a no one is really anyone's superior. We just kind of work together, and it's a great environment. So I think that's something Hannah and Eric and the team should be proud of, like fostering this like really collaborative atmosphere. Not one of hierarchies, but collaboration. And yeah, one of the things last year, I think it was last year, I don't know how much time has passed, but um, we were trying to do some VR comfort stuff. And one of the things about working in VR is like you can get motion sickness not only on like a flat plane, but vertically too.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I did just on a whim was solve an issue where like people who have motion sickness traveling vertically, but you have to go down a slope, you don't want to, puncture like the terrain or whatever. We have a comfort feature. And yeah, Oculus talked to us about it and really liked it. And it's just a really cool feature for people who have vertical motion sickness. And that's in Mist on the Quest, which is really cool.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
One other thing that I would mention is a lot of us have worked together for a long time, and with this pandemic, starting to work from home, like we were able to just hit the ground running really well, which we've heard horror stories about that not going well elsewhere. And yeah, I think like that's just been such a considering the circumstances, how we've been able to work from home and be productive and get stuff done on time has been a great experience, in my opinion. I certainly didn't think it was going to be like that when we first started that. But yeah, looking back, I'm really proud of how the whole team has been able to work together under these circumstances.
One of my most, like, I guess, proud of moments that I've had in the last year has been, for those who are unfamiliar with how like shipping on Oculus Quest goes, there's a certification process you have to go through that requires you hit a certain performance amount and have a certain size of the game, and it looks a certain way. We were able to like land the date that we hope to pass, and it was such a good, like, it just felt like the whole team came together to like really make that happen. And just the relief of having passed cert was so overwhelming. And like, it made me so happy and like so proud of the team for being able to accomplish this arguably like very difficult feat. So that was probably my most like one of my happiest moments in the last year, I think. Yeah, that's it for me.
That's fantastic. I bet that was a huge like victory moment. I'm remembering Cyan doing live streams for the end of the abduction Kickstarter. I particularly remember, with your Kickstarters, you guys seem to enjoy throwing parties to celebrate milestones. So is that a team bonding thing you guys do?
Yeah, but here's the lame part. We haven't actually had like an in-person party to celebrate the release of Myst at all. We will be having an internal one coming soon, thankfully, when it's going to be much safer for everyone to get together. But yeah, we had a virtual like cheers basically, which I mean, it was special, but it wasn't like exactly the way we like to celebrate for sure. I remember when we launched Abduction, we spent almost the whole day just watching live streams of people playing the game. Like that was like the most satisfying part about launching, just seeing people enjoying it. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to say about that, but yeah, very rewarding.
Yeah, I do want to echo Josh's comment a little bit about how things have worked out even in a remote or hybrid place. And that's so awesome. Like, that's one of the things I also feel very proud of. I've only been here for 6 months, but seeing that the Cyan has embraced like progressive work policies, like, you know, everybody can work remote or they can go to the office these days now to some degree, right? But it's fully hybrid always. And even with that arrangement that some people think might not work, it seems to be working just fine for us. And it's kind of amazing because this is kind of a unique situation, a new thing to be exploring. Some of us that were hired are completely remote. Some people go to the office all the time. Some people sometimes go to the office or they don't. So we have all this like plethora of flexibility that hasn't hampered productivity. Sometimes it feels like productivity goes up because we feel more empowered and more flexible at the workplace. So that just, I've been loving that so much. Have never experienced that before.
You guys sound like you have an amazing office environment.
Yeah, for sure.
It is nice.
I
Yeah.
definitely think we do.
And for those of you who are newer to Cyan, like Abner, welcome to the family. I'm sorry that you haven't gotten to experience a Mysterium with us yet, as those of them who have been at Cyan before know when Mysterium is in person, there's always a very special like feeling from the fans, and we hope that the next time we have an in-person Mysterium, which we're going to tell you guys about on Sunday, so stay tuned. We always invite all of the Cyan staff to come out, whether or not people enjoy or want to come travel to the cities, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome.
Is different. Maybe you don't want to come, but you should come. But when we come to you, yes, I will talk slower. When we come to you at Spokane, the fans are always thrilled to come around and explore the office and to meet the new members. And that's why I say I think those of you who have experienced us coming to your facility and spending the day know that we tend to be very excited and thrilled to meet everyone.
Yeah, it's always a good time. I think last year was one of the first ones 2 years ago. What's time
2019
anyway?
when we all invaded.
Yeah. But that was like the first one I had missed in a long time, and I felt a little guilty, but I was playing volleyball, so it was okay.
That's
How could
valid.
you?
I know,
could you?
I know.
Well, what you should have done was committed to play disc golf with us, yes?
I mean, I'll take that.
Priorities.
You know,
Says
it's
the
good
chat.
criticism. It's good, honest criticism, and I appreciate it.
All right, we actually have some questions filtering in, so unless you guys want to say anything else, and this is not an interrogation, by the way, this is a conversation. So if I relay a question that gets you guys sparking off each other and telling stories, that's great. You know, don't feel like you need to stop and be dragged back to a question. So it sounds like a couple people are very curious about exactly how this remote work is going and like the forms in which way it winds up working. So a couple people are wondering, okay, for working from home, do you guys need special permission to get proprietary tools loaded? You know, what does this pipeline look like?
I
Very
can
much
speak
a
to that.
that question.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. We don't have control over what people choose to install on their work machines that they use at home, nor do we care, honestly.
But I mean, like,
there
does everybody
are,
have to have like the particular engine installed or a
of
particular
course, yeah.
software used?
We host our projects up in the cloud for people to grab, or if they're in the office, they grab it from the server on site, and that you basically just grab that data and it will open up in the correct version of the engine. You don't need to install anything particularly special to open it. With that said, though, as programmers, we do need to use stuff like Visual Studio, text editing programs, stuff like that, that just make our job, like it makes us, allows us to do what we need to do to code the game for sure. But otherwise, I mean, I don't know if anyone else wants to answer that, but I don't think there's anything particularly like special we need to install on our machines, like globally.
No, there is a tool which I think is worth mentioning, especially if you decide that you want to get into Unreal and you just have a lump of money and you want to see it disappear into a slightly more convenient thing. There's this tool called Visual Assist X, I think. It actually has stuff built in for Unreal. After using it, I don't think I would be able to do anything without it. Like I like Visual Studio, Visual Assist with the color highlighting and, you know, being able to understand Unreal's macros and stuff right out of the gate is great. Beyond that, you know, I have Steam on my work machine, and I have a few games. I think that's pretty necessary, especially through the COVID times. And now that, you
I
know,
mean, can you work for Cyan and not have games installed on your computer? Is it possible to work at a game dev company and not play games?
You would be surprised.
yeah, yeah.
Seriously?
You would be
Yeah.
surprised. Yeah.
I think standard workplace stuff still applies. So there's people who completely view this as like a job. But I honestly don't think anyone at Cyan thinks of games that way. I just think that there's also a lot of people who don't relax by playing video games. So for me, oh yeah, this thing's loaded, and I have to constantly juggle data around, especially with all the work stuff that we have. But yeah, in terms of special packages or anything like that, I mean, you know, every once in a while we have special stuff, but you know, that's not that. I don't know. That just happens, and definitely not stuff for this panel.
On the QA side of things, there's some unique opportunities for like our daily tasks. So normally, you know, I'd come into the office at like 9 and start benchmarks, but my day begins between 6 and 7 when my kids start screaming when they wake up. And so I'm able to start benchmarks pretty shortly thereafter and sometimes get results before, you know, our day has even officially began. So that kind of just works out. That wasn't intended. It was just, you know, it just worked out. So yeah, that's an example of very unique circumstance from this work environment that we have right now.
Sometimes work from home is getting woken up by your children or family if you've got them. Sometimes work from home is your cat realizing that they can get food out of you at 7:30 in the morning. Yeah.
I understand that one. I think my dogs
100%.
wake me up at like, I think it's like 6 on the dot every day.
I think that's going to be how everyone has to sign out. I'm going to put my comments, and I think everyone's going to have to briefly talk about their pets. I feel like now we're at sign out. It's an inevitable question. I'm sorry.
It's good.
Feel free to catch your animal. Okay. Yep. We've got a number of people doing the technical pipeline questions, so believe me, if you're worried that you're like boring people by talking about specific tools, no, the questions are coming in and they want to know. A question for, I guess, that you guys can each answer one at a time is, someone is saying, what is the very first game you developed? And not necessarily professionally, maybe including your own fun projects.
No one else is gonna go. I made a text adventure game on Neopets. Neopets was like my first foray into game development, I guess, which is like weird to say, but they had so many ways, like so many doors you could open to just like get a taste of making a small little thing. So that was me.
Yeah, I remember Python, the programming language.
Mhm.
Python is great as a learning tool. And when I wanted to learn Python, I wanted to make games with it, and that's a very common, I feel like, feeling that kids who want to learn programming want to make games, even if they don't end up doing games professionally. But making games is like a thing, as far as I can tell, for almost every kid that learns programming. So Python for sure. And there was this, I don't know what to call it, library or framework called Pygame, which I think Pygame was a bit of a wrapper over SDL. And all that does is like it gives you a set of almost magic functions, right? That you can invoke and pass in some values in order to control the screen in various ways. You can control what to draw as pixels. You can control your speakers in order to generate audio, etc. So it's just a set of functions that you can concoct and piece together in Python to make your game happen. And so I remember making like what? It was ping pong. No, sorry, the Pong game, the classic Pong game. I also did like this falling pizza game from a book. So you have like this character at the bottom ready to catch all the pizzas being thrown from like a rooftop. And that was really awesome. And I learned so much of programming through that pizza game. And that was one way that I've learned to always enjoy eating pizza all the time. I always think of that game. I'm like, that game was awesome. I'm hungry. Let's buy pizza. So that's a thing
My
now.
cat would like to vote for that game and to be the player character at the bottom of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. If I find the source for it, oh my God, it's got to be like in really old hard drives. But if I find the source for it, I can put it up on GitHub or something. People want to take a look at it.
You should put it up on GitHub and make like a silly little mist variation, like catching fire marbles or something. That's what you should do.
Karl, can you help me with that? Maybe Brandon can help me with that too. We can.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
make a-
We can do that.
Marble cats. Just make mini silly dunny games. Yeah.
Yeah, actually. Oh, go ahead, Karl.
No, you got it.
All right. Actually, the first game that I ever did is I was actually learning just using Linux, and I wanted to learn more about Linux. And I discovered SDL, and I started making, just playing around with it. And the first game that I made Duck Hunt.
Oh.
And then I wanted to make, I didn't want to have Duck Hunt with a mouse. So then what I did is I took my Wiimote and I got it to work in Linux. So that way I could use my Wiimote to actually use that as kind of like my gun for Duck Hunt. So that was like one of my first things.
I was actually going to bring that up. Like, if you didn't say anything about that Duck Hunt game, I was going to get angry.
No, I was planning on it.
Yeah.
No, I had a lot of fun actually doing that. And Duck Hunt, like growing up, was one of my favorite games.
I made like an R-type clone when I was young. That's it. I mean, that's the whole story. It sucked. It was awful. But you got to start somewhere, right? You know, like if there's any would-be game developers out there, you're gonna start, and you may not even like the stuff that you make, but over time you'll just get better, and just like anything, practice makes perfect, or ever slightly closer toward it. So just start on something, even if you don't like it, and keep going.
The first game I ever tested on was Pirates versus Ninja Dodgeball, which Karl can confirm that's a real thing.
That is a real thing.
It was on the Xbox 360 Live Arcade. I believe it got ported to the Wii later, but yeah, that was my first experience.
Okay.
Oh wow, it's a thing.
That's a thing.
That's insane.
That's okay. The chat loves this.
Later.
By the way, the chats are laughing. All right. Looks like another one we have is, what does the pipeline of a programmer look like at Cyan, and what are your recommendations for people interested in game development themselves? Sounds like we've already gotten a couple answers with, okay, Python. Python's a good option. But
There are so many resources online for a variety of game engines nowadays. Unreal Engine has a great learning resource page for their site on how to get started, even without getting Visual Studio or something that might seem intimidating to start learning how to program. So I highly recommend checking Unreal Engine site out, check Unity's site out. There are some other game engines that are really approachable too. Yeah, so in case you're like, I'm not quite comfortable with the coding side of it, don't worry. Like Unreal has a pretty like high level version of it that you might find yourself comfortable with it pretty quickly. So
Yeah, I would definitely say it's really good to develop a habit of, well, this is what I did when I was trying to really become good at this stuff. It was develop a daily habit where you learn something new about what you're interested in, coding, art, whatever, and then you put it into practice somehow. And even if it just takes 30 minutes or an hour a day, just like a daily habit or an almost daily habit of where you learn something new, put it into practice.
Oh no.
did Abner just drop out?
I think Abner just froze into a trap book.
While we're waiting
well-
for Abner, I actually want to call Abner out on something in a good way.
Oh my God.
He has not mentioned yet that he runs his own conference called Handmade Con, which is essentially all about people learning how to and implementing like things from scratch in code, whether it be game or some tool or software. Like his whole thing is about like teaching people how to do things from the ground up. So he's probably he would probably be embarrassed if he knew I was saying all this about him. So this is a good time to do it. But yeah, highly recommend folks check out Handmade Con online. I think it might be partially in person this year in Seattle. So anyway, there's that.
Yeah, I think you're right. One of the things is to kind of control your scope too. Like a lot of people have this like grandiose idea of the thing that they want to make and why they would start programming in the first place. But just like anything, don't rush it. Otherwise you're going to be overwhelmed really, really, really fast. So, Python's a great example. You can whip something together actually pretty quickly. And a lot of tutorials, a lot of programming tutorials are hello world, right? Just getting that to show up somewhere. And there's a reason for that. It's starting really small and then just kind of building off of that one thing.
Hi, Abner.
He's back.
Hello. Oh, sorry. I'm so embarrassed.
There he is.
Oh my
Don't worry, I
God.
talked about Handmade Con while you were gone. So
You should
Oh,
fill
okay.
them in on it.
Feels like it's the perfect opportunity while he's not here because he would be too embarrassed.
I talked you up, Abner. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Handmade Con, that's a good resource. It's I'm calling it Handmade Seattle these days. So because it's located in Seattle. So if you want to learn about programming and like the things I'm interested in, which is like kind of like low level, more to the metal. Like if you think about Unreal, can you guys hear me? Like it's all good now?
Yes,
Yes.
you are
Okay,
good.
cool. Just yeah. So anyway, the stuff I'm interested in as a programmer and what I learned that got me into NASA, for example, was Unreal Engine it's an engine that's a bit of a black box. That's a very useful black box, right? With which you can like start making games with it, right? But then the question becomes, who made the black box? How did that engine become so powerful for so many people to make games with it? Well, there's a series of like programmers that are called low-level programmers, or in my case, my job title is like systems programmer that like makes systems that then other programmers and game developers can use, right? So if you want to learn how to make your own engine, right, or how to join Unity on Unreal Epic Games to work on their engine, right, and give people the power to make games, then there is a conference called Handmade Seattle. Thank you, Hannah, for mentioning it. Yeah, it's something that I'm organizing. I organize that conference, and you can go Google Handmade Seattle. There's an online track this year if you can't make it there in person. And then there's also a physical track where you can come in person. Hopefully, right by November, the city believes that things will be good in terms of being able to be there in person. And so if you want to learn programming in the way that I've learned programming in my life, then Handmade Seattle could be a great resource for that. So it really is useful. I'm not a shill. I'm not trying to like get to buy a ticket, and it'll be streamed for free actually. So like if you're a student or young, you can't afford it, it's going to be streamed for free, right? So it's all about learning about programming together. So
That's so generous.
I absolutely love programming in systems, and it's great. I'll finish by saying, I don't know what the question was before, but what I do one of the things I'm proud of at Cyan is like, and maybe Josh can talk about this, Hannah, what the experience has been with it, but I've been creating what are called bots on the Slack, because we all talk on the Slack chat app, right? And I want to democratize access to information. So like when people want to make the binary, when you double click on the game on your desktop or on Steam, that it's a whole process to get to that final binary, to that final executable, to that final game. A lot of a lot of art assets have to go into that. A lot of code has to go into that, and some special magic processes, right? Concoct that together to make the game, right? So before I got there, it was you had to like connect to a VPN. You had to go into a browser, type in a special domain in order to get to the information about how to make a build, how to make a binary, how to make a game. And I'm like, why don't we make that just happen on Slack, right? What if somebody just wants to ping a special bot, right? And say, I want a new version of the game. I have some new art going in, right? And they just tag the bot says hello, right? And oh, you need a new version of the game with your new art? Let's do it. And then it'll just do it for you. So that's another thing a systems programmer will do. So I made a little system with the bot, yeah. And now artists, programmers, non-programmers, whoever can talk to that bot and ask questions about how the game's going, or to make a new version of the game with the new art or with the new code. And you don't have to learn all these steps to get there. It's just I'm democratizing that access. And so a systems programmer would also work with stuff like that. So done talking, done ranting, sorry.
That's super, super cool.
Yeah, these bots have some sass to them too. So if you get sarcastic with them, they'll throw it right back at you. It's kind of scary.
The funniest story with that was I think Eric, the creative director of the company, I think talked to the bot for the first time. And I think it was Eric asked, make me a sandwich, just as a joke, right? And then the bot responded on Slack with like ... And you are? And then the bot was like painting its nails, like, who are you, right? And then Eric is like, okay, you're fired. And I'm like, oh, am I fired for being sassy against the creative director here? I go, oh,
It was perfect.
It wasn't my fault. It was the bot. Okay.
It was perfect.
Okay.
It was hilarious.
Good. I hope I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. It wasn't me. It was the bot. It was experimental dialogues. It was not me. All right.
Amazing. All right. Somewhat related, since people have talked about Unreal, one of the other questions we got that seems like a natural follow-up is, have any of you dug into Unreal Engine 5, and what are your thoughts on it? Does it have implications for future Cyan stuff?
Yes and yes. There isn't much more. I mean, maybe Karl's dug into a little bit too, but right now Unreal Engine 5 doesn't quite support doing things that we need it to do in the current games that we're making. For example, the new features Nanite and Lumen, which are really incredible and can make your game run super fast with lots of data. Those don't, Nanite does not work in VR right now. So that's problematic if we are going to continue to make VR games.
Yeah.
With that said, like, it is really cool seeing like how quickly you can prototype something that looks really good and still runs really well on 2D flat screen sort of platforms. Anyone else want to say much about Unreal Engine 5?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead. So yeah, I played around with it a bit, and the tool set, like if you're using the editor, it's very similar. The engine has like a whole different look to it, but really a lot of things that are under the hood are similar. But yeah, there's huge visual and performance implications from Nanite and Lumen that are like really appealing. I know Eric probably spends maybe some amount of time every week playing in it, but yeah, we've chatted about it, and it's like, oh, this is the thing of dreams. So I assume that art will be ready to act on it, and us engineers will too. It yeah, it's great. It's really cool. It's a nice evolution to the engine we've been using for what, like a decade now. So
Yeah.
Sorry, you must acknowledge dog.
yeah, I had them brought in just to make sure we can end this right.
So related again, we were asked to ask you, what are some new opportunities or challenges that VR has given you that you either cannot easily do or cannot replicate in 2D? I mean, is it kind of almost like developing for two different platforms at this state, or is it you develop for one first and then change it back to the other, much like earlier Eric and Hannah were talking about develop high, then downscale to low? You know, are you developing VR first and then coming back to the flat screen?
Brandon, do you want to talk a little bit about your process in setting up those puzzles for both?
Sure. Actually, yeah, with Myst specifically, like we were all in on VR at first, and the biggest issue running into going from like VR back to a flat screen is in VR, like the clock tower puzzle. That was like the first puzzle that I worked on and put together. And one of the issues is like when you're playing, you know, Myst Masterpiece, right? You have one mouse cursor and you can click on one lever at a time.
Yep.
VR, I can grab both of them. I can pull them both. Like what happens, you know? So it's like one of the things I had to think about is, you know, what happens if I grab both those levers and I pull them at the same time? Like, what is it going to do? Is it going to, you know? So there was a lot of stuff that coming from like a flat screen or 2D style game that I had to think about in order to one, get them to work, and then not break because you can grab multiple things at once. So that was for me, it was the biggest challenge.
You don't want to make the universe explode because you pull
No,
two levers
exactly.
and then
I don't
everything
want,
decompiles into the
cogs
fissure.
flying everywhere, the clock tower falls down, you know, I don't want that.
So
Gigantic dog.
okay, so one of the things that we try to do, like input, right, that Brandon was saying, input tends to be very different between like a 2D game and a VR game. And it's hilarious that we use the term 2D for like Myst when it's 3D, but like we actually just we say 2D or flat screen or something like that. So in VR, you know, you might have like an object or something, and then it's relative your hand relative to that in the world. Where in 2D, we're looking at like this flat screen, right? And then it's a point that's like a line drawn to that object or wherever your mouse is, and then interactions done based on that. So when we looked at like VR and 2D and maybe some of the ways we can simplify the problem, we decided to make our 2D stuff actually 3D. So behind every interaction, there's a three-dimensional plane where it stops the mouse cursor. So again, if I bring this thing up and there's like a plane, like let's say it's just sliced right through the middle, and in VR we'd like grab it and it's like a crank and we'd turn it, you know, something like that. Well, in 2D, that ray that we'd trace from the screen would hit that plane, giving it a 3D position that we can do similar things with. So there's ways we can simplify those problems, but it doesn't stop all the problems from occurring. So we end up doing things that are specifically for VR. Things like movement and comfort are things that are like very difficult to do in VR. Not moving in VR, but keeping people comfortable while they're in VR doing those things. There's a lot of like spatial interaction that you just can't get the sense of in 2D. Like it's just not possible. So yeah, I mean, this tool set will develop over time and we'll get better at it. But
Okay.
we have been trying to combine and do as much as we can through one pass of the game without trying to separate the logic. So we have something sitting a little lower level that helps that process out. Even if it doesn't get 100% of the way there, there's like a good 70 to 90%. And hopefully that makes sense. If anybody has any follow-up questions, like just let us know and I can explain that a little bit more. But
yeah, tagging on to what Karl said about interacting with things in VRs, and Brandon too, a bit different from 2D. We had to redesign some puzzles entirely from Myst to accommodate for VR, in particular for accessibility reasons. So for example, there are multiple puzzles that are just like on the floor in the original Myst, which you could not interact with comfortably in VR, especially if you're playing seated or if you're standing or if you're unable to crouch in real life. So we had to raise the position of many puzzles. We had to change the way you interact with them. For those of you who have played Myst on Quest, probably the biggest example of that would be the chest and key puzzle in Stone Chip. That was probably the biggest diversion from how OG Myst is played. I encourage folks, if you do have the Quest version, to check that out and see like what it feels like, and maybe you'd come to understand why we did it for those reasons now. And it's almost purely an accessibility reason at that point. So
I've got a follow-up question on that, actually, because again, people were really excited about what was being said in the last panel about, okay, well, how do you handle crouching? How do you handle that sort of thing? So people are very much appreciating some of those accessibility changes for people with mobility impairments. A couple people have been wondering about what other sort of accessibilities you've been taking into mind. For example, a person who is hard of hearing mentioned, what do you do when you're changing the pipes? Well, what if I can't hear the water flowing through the pipes? Someone else mentioned with the older snake, etc., constellation symbols, if you're red-green colorblind, those were a problem which the new lamp system gets around. So what have you guys been looking at in terms of accessibility?
I think we've solved all of those problems, but I want to let Josh go ahead and explain some of them just in case they're not working right now. But they all should be, in theory, working to solve those issues. So
Right. So there's context subtitles and dialogue subtitles. So for the the channelwood pipes specifically, when you turn the water on, there will be a context subtitle box that will follow, well, that you'll be able to trace where that pipe water sound is going. So you'll know which route that the water is going without even looking at the lever. Same thing with like the sound door puzzle in Selenetic. When you move that dial, the context subtitles will appear for that and describe each of the sound stations throughout the age. There's a hide vehicle transition option. So if you get
Motion sick.
right, going up an elevator, for example, that will just cut through that. Same with ladders, I believe. There's a quick travel option for the ladder, or you can manually climb up and down. Yeah, does that cover all of those?
yeah, I think so. And then there was one more. Oh, the context subtitles in particular, and all of those options Josh just mentioned, they're not on by default. You can choose to turn them on. They're options in the menu. So
Yeah, I think that's really fantastic. One of the feedbacks I know that I've seen when I was doing my both in academic literature and I did my undergraduate thesis on the Myst fan community. And what struck me was that those of you who've worked on Uru have probably heard some of this, that players who are just, oh no, we lost someone. bookmark is that players who are disabled and maybe have mobility challenges or hearing challenges or sight challenges still love being able to explore virtual worlds, maybe in the way they can't do in the physical world. So the fact that y'all are putting in the time and effort to say, okay, how can we adapt these things, I think is something that people genuinely really appreciate.
Yeah, glad to hear that. Yeah, we do that entirely for people playing the game for sure. It's definitely not a selfish thing by any means. So if anyone is playing the game and they feel like they are unable to overcome a puzzle for whatever reason, like please let us know and we'll look into it. One thing that we didn't mention, Josh, the constellations, they were red and green in the original Myst. Now they're just fully off or turned on in like Nixie tube fashion. So it's pretty clear when it's like enabled or disabled, and it doesn't use red or green at all.
Yeah, there's a couple people in chat who are actively saying thank you. Some Myst puzzles series puzzles have very much been hostile to colorblind folks in the past, so thank you a lot. So that's
For sure.
definitely popular. All right, we are getting close to the end of time, and we have far, far more questions than can be asked. So I'm just going to do a couple more broad ones, which is we're getting a lot of questions about like your inspirational your inspirations. So a favorite non-Cyan game or a gamer game developer who's really inspiring you, influencing you. So can each of you maybe pick a game or a studio or something you'd like to talk about?
I think I should go first in case my internet goes black again.
Go for it.
So I want to show my favorite game of all time that the company has to hear about every single day almost, right? But it's Majora's Mask. It's from The Legend of Zelda. Hopefully, if you don't know that game, if you haven't played it, we can't be friends, I don't think. So a little too blunt, I'm kidding. I'm half kidding. Okay, so that game, there's a whole lot to that game that inspired me in terms of the fact that it was first a sequel of another game, right? So like they took something that was a base and they expanded on it like crazy, but with a story that was to me, it subverted expectations, because like Ocarina of Time was like adventure, a sense of like optimism, and we're gonna go out there and defeat the evil Ganondorf, right? But with Majora's Mask, it feels like a much more intimate story, a much more personal story, a story about healing and connecting with other people, right? Because you're trying to heal somebody's sorrows after they died, right? And then you want them to feel like you're solving problems for them, and then you get the mask, right? So like that kind of like adventure of like I'm healing myself and I'm healing others, and we're doing it together. And it is only by that process of healing that we can stop the moon from crashing and destroying us all, right? That just, I think, speaks to the power of the bonds that you make with people in your life, right? And so even with something like Cyan, right? Like it's not technical competence alone that makes Cyan a great company. It's the bonds that you form with each other. And through that bond is that we start making technical work together. But like we need that base, right? We need that social context to be solid. And so Majora's Mask has like opened up that kind of viewpoint for me. And so that's why I always carry stuff like this with me. It's like, it's just, yeah. I'll stop there before I don't want to get emotional.
That's so sweet.
That was very touching, Abner.
That was extremely touching. I don't even work with y'all, and now I want to just.
I promise I didn't tell him to say that too.
I might have.
It
was all my idea.
Oh, yeah. Karl's like, Abner, you better tell Majora's Mask stories. Yeah.
I'll go. I think I always, like, when I was really young, I was on medication that like rotted out my teeth. This is a great way to start any story.
Wow.
So yeah, isn't that neat? I was really young, and so I couldn't like talk or anything, and so I got like a video game console. That was like one of the first things that I had, and I like learned to read and be expressive and everything through like video games. So I kind of knew that I always wanted this trajectory, even if I didn't feel like I would somehow get there. Like, and just as a note to everybody, I feel like a lot of us ended up lucky. Like you can have a lot of skill, but there's some amount of chance involved, and you have to, you know, I think everyone here has like made sure to kind of cherish that opportunity. But you know it's an opportunity. And so like I like that was like a life experience that kind of led me toward gaming as a future for myself. But in terms of like games, I love a ton of games, but I don't think any will be as like awe-inspiring as the Eco trilogy, like Eco, Shadow Colossus, and The Last Guardian. I don't.
Okay.
They are like true adventures. Almost no words expressed, but like tons of emotion just oozing through them. The gameplay can sometimes be a little clunky, but overall, I've never seen anything or played anything that's like really just kind of had me fully immersed. Not just, you know, like, oh, these worlds look great, but that I'm using my own cognitive reasoning to understand what's going on in the story because it's never expressed. So that's every game you play of those, like every person who plays it might interpret things differently, and I really like that. I'm a huge fan of like being able to play the game. Two people play the game, and they come with different experiences. That's really cool to me.
I have something to say on top of what Karl said, more on the air of the other part of the question, which is like, how do you spend your downtime? For a long time before the pandemic started, things are different now, obviously. Karl and I would have a drink or two and then play so many different, like, ranging from not so great quality to very high quality, scary games. And just being able to like enjoy a game you don't actively work on that's like literally nothing like the games you work on is very satisfying, I'd say, and fun and relaxing, and you're not thinking about the game you're making too much, although we were 100% critiquing the way people made the game the whole time. It's really fun. So I'd recommend people always branch out and try and play games that you don't work on if you are a game developer.
I think for me, the game that kind of inspired me the most is like I grew up with the Atari, with the NES, but it wasn't until I played Suikoden 2 is the one game that kind of like really hit me emotionally. It's a JRPG, which I'm a huge fan of them. Karl doesn't like that, but that's fine.
Wow.
But for me, like that was the one game that the story just hit me differently than a lot of the other stuff that I played. And the Suikoden series, after hitting that game, I played through the series, absolutely loved it. Still my favorite, series of games, and still a series that I tend to play at least once a year, or try to anyways. But yeah, for me, that's like the one thing that I absolutely do love.
I'll have you know, Brandon, I don't hate JRPGs.
Oh no.
I've been playing Persona 5.
Yeah. Which is great.
So, yeah,
great.
it's a great game. It's a great game.
Told you it was.
These are great examples of games that like break the preconceived notions of people that like, oh, games, you're just gonna have fun. But what about going beyond fun? What about being touched by a game?
Yeah.
What about being inspired to do better in your life because of that game? And we just gave examples of games that touched us in a real way, like in a way that a book would have, or in a way that a piece of art would have, a painting would have, right? And so I find that inspiring to hear other examples like that too. So.
Yeah, mine's going to be so weak compared to all these emotional stories.
Oh, no. For fun, games for fun are also awesome, right?
We all know Myst is your favorite game, Josh. You don't have to
Oh
say.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's clearly the one you sunk the most hours into.
that is true. Yep, that's very true. No, I've played games my whole life, but the one that I've stuck with since basically launch, and I even play at times today, StarCraft Brood War. It's it's hyper focused, hyper fast, extremely high amount of APMs required. It's the exact opposite of Mist.
Yeah.
But I think that getting into that game and developing like certain habits mixed with other life experiences has really helped me in this line of work, just multitasking, being able to do a lot of different things, keep track of a lot of different things at once. I know we used to joke about tracking Mist performance with not APMs, but PPMs, which is pages per minute.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was, I mean,
Didn't we have APM in abduction though, ages per minute or something like
yeah,
that?
something like that.
Cool.
So yeah,
Who holds the record? Was that you or Nick?
Nick is the fastest time for
Yes.
legitimate QA speed run. Yeah, so yeah, getting older. Trust me, my StarCraft skills have gone way down too. So it's hard to keep up on that these days. But yeah, that's my story to end on a low note after all these great, wonderful personal experiences
All right.
with
Well,
art.
You know what? It's that's why the question was downtime or inspiration. You know, both are valid. Now, it's the end of the call. We've got a couple minutes to the next panel, but rather than wrapping it up here, I did say, and the chat is chanting for the pets. Now is the time for the pets and the sign off. Tell us about your children.
I need to find a pet. I have my Zelda over here somewhere.
Everyone is now summoning pets. Excellent.
Where's Cookie?
I'm at the office, so no pets allowed.
Okay, do you have a pet?
I do. I have a beagle, so yes, she would be
The panel wants to see.
right now if she was here.
So she's gonna be in my office for the first time ever.
You should all
Wally.
join the Discord
go.
and discuss your pets.
I've got good old Ripley here. Ripley is named after Ellen Ripley from Alien, by the way. Not
Oh.
Ripley's
Hi,
Believe It or
Ripley.
Not. Yeah.
Come here.
I've got two. The other one's hiding under the table.
Okay.
Kona, this one, and then I've got another one named Zeus.
Hold on.
So, but he's napping at my feet. He's been at my feet this whole time.
Oh, Zelda. Where are you, Zelda?
Are they both the same breed?
No, so Zeus, the one that you can't see, is a husky mix, and then he is a poodle cockapoo mix.
Buddy.
Okay.
Or
What's
cockapoo, I guess.
Abner, who's your cat?
Gizmo.
This is Gizmo, and he is a little corgi guy, and he is very tired and grumpy. Yeah, good boy.
Same with Ripley. She's also
And
a little tired and grumpy.
Then you might see Wally or the brown dog. Yeah, and he's you can't really tell him to stay still, so he's just laying down. That's about as good as we'll get, but yeah.
Hi, kitty.
You'll see Zelda here because I'm going to have some fish in my office soon, like a fish tank.
Oh.
So she's going to pounce on the fish. So first and last time probably at the office here. Sorry, Zelda. There you go. She's a kitty. She's like 3 years old, but so tiny. I love it. Oh, I lost her. Zelda? No? Okay. Sniffing around the trash can. That's not healthy.
No. But we have the other stream for the art panel to start. But I would like to thank you all, first of all, for the pets, because apparently this is just... Is it like the Zoom law that if pets appear on the stream, you must introduce them, and if your pet is not appearing on the stream, talk about your pet? Because I think that's what chat is doing.
Yeah. And now the problem is that Ripley wants to continue getting pets. So
Well, that's fine. But everyone is like, thank you for what you do and the work you put in. We know you've taken time out of your weekend to come speak with us, and we appreciate that. And from the fans to you, you know, your work inspires us, your game inspires us. That's why we have Mysterium as a convention. It's named for Myst, but it's not just Myst. It's all of your games, including Abduction. Your work has transformed and inspired and supported so many people. And we love what you do. And no matter how long you've been here, welcome to the Cyan family. You're the fandoms now, and we love you. And if you want to keep chatting with us, join the Mysterium Lounge Discord and tell us more about the pets.
Thank you so much, Capella. It's
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and that's.
Got it. Thank you.
I said in the last panel, like, we can't thank our fans enough because, like, we barely have any words to describe like how much you all mean to us. So
A
thank
rising
you.
tide lifts all boats. Really, you make us better, and we support you. I think that's how this works.
Thank you for supporting us. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. Thank you for taking care of us here.
Really appreciate it.
Goodbye, guys.